Ok, dovrebbe esserci tutto. Vedrei che questo sono tranquillamente appoggiato qui. Ok. Okay, we can start. There are people that only speak English. Yeah, okay, good. We can continue in English. No issue at all. So, thank you to be here. This is the second event in person of the user group after the COVID. So we are happy that we started to meet someone in person. Here the agenda. Just a little introduction for the user group. I see a lot of new faces, so I'm happy that there are new people. Maybe you are not aware that there are several user groups in Ticino about technology. The AWS user group is one of these. Usually we have 8-9 meetings each year. The topic is obviously AWS, by the name. It's pretty obviously. And we are open to have any kind of talk and proposal also by you. A lot of people are here are a student. If you are learning something and you want to propose something, happy. Don't be shy at all. What else that's to say? This is a user group, so we are open also to have some kind of round tables. If you are interested in some topics that are interested for your study path, for your learning path and so on, feel free to propose or a topic or a talk by you, or simply
Yes, just suggest a topic.
Yeah, and we can arrange around the table around the topic and start to talk without a problem. Elia will present his full stack development with AWS in just a few minutes. And go ahead with the next slides. The Swiss region, so the AWS data center in Switzerland, opened a few days ago, the 9th of November. Here just little numbers about the business behind AWS. AWS is not only a technology on the technology side. Obviously, we are the technicians, we are here and we are interested for this, but you are a student. They put all together all the announcement and everything that is new. So if you are interested on the topic, you can follow the keynote. There are 3 main keynotes, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. The most important for the technology, for the technicians, is the one on Thursday by Werner Vogels, the CTO of AWS. If you are not interested to follow the whole week, no problem. We will do a recap in January, 24th of January. So this is the next date for this user group. And then in 20th of January, there will be also the conference, Box Days Ticino, here at Palazzo dei Congressi. Is a conference by developers for developers. Usually there are some free tickets or some discounts for USI and SUPSI. So if you are informed, if you are interested, you can ask to your responsible and so on for these tickets. And the call for paper is already closed, so we are not accepting any more new proposal. We already announced more than 15 speakers. is a 3-track in parallel conference, so you will have at each time a talk in Italian and a talk in English without a problem. You can follow the language that you prefer. And that's it. Something more to say on Box Days? No. Okay. Good. Okay. So here the stage is on for Elia.
So, hi everybody, and welcome to this new meetup. We will talk about AWS Amplify. I'm Elia Contini. I'm a full-stack cloud-native engineer at Clarent, Switzerland. So, let's start immediately. What is Amplify? Amplify is a services of AWS to build a full-stack web and mobile application and make it easy to scale. With Amplify, you can create the application backend, you can create the API using REST or GraphQL, you can manage authentication, data, storage, and a lot of other things. If in your team there are the designer, normally designer use Figma, you can directly import Figma files and convert them in React components. You can obviously host your web application directly using Amplify, and through the AWS CDN CloudFront, you could make your application scale without any problem. You don't have to do almost nothing. Amplify, I said that is a service, but in my opinion, we could consider Amplify like a meta service because it's an abstraction layer that allows to interact with a lot. These are just few of the services that you can use through Amplify, and every services that are in this slide makes something different. For example, with AppSync, you can create GraphQL APIs. With Cognito, you manage the authentication, the registration of the users. With API Gateway, you can create the infrastructure to deploy your application, your APIs, and be available on the cloud and scale for free. Just you don't have to take or spend time to configure how to scale, how to do provisioning or something else. Just is automatic. You can use S3 is the object storage of AWS to store files. You can create function as a services using Lambda. You can collect data even in real time using Kinesis and so on. So today we are going to develop just a blog application. It's a simple application, but we can see how Amplify works. So the idea is to create a blog so our visitor can read our post, but we have even an administration panel that allows the administrator or the bloggers to post in the blog, so can create, edit, and delete post. So there is a public part and a protected part. Preparation. I don't know how many of you have some experience, just try the services of the AWS. Okay. So the idea is that before start to use Amplify, you have to create an AWS account. You need a credit card, but for this experiment, everything we use is free because there is a free tier, let's say, how to call? Yeah, you have free resources for a period, or there are some threshold that if you are below this threshold, you don't pay nothing. In any case, when you create your account, just set up a budget so you can have an alert about how costs are going on. Then in your machine, you have to install Node.js and npm. You have to install Amplify, and then using Amplify configure, you have to create a YAML user to Amplify configure. We don't see this in during this live session coding. All this stuff are already done in my machine. Otherwise, we waste a lot of time. We are going to use for this demo DynamoDB. DynamoDB is a NoSQL database, is a key value NoSQL database, and stated in the DynamoDB official page is for single-digit millisecond performance at any scale. This means that there are some constraints, or let's say limitation, I don't know, about how we structure our data. And when we use DynamoDB, we have to start to think which kind of query we want to do. Because starting from this point, it's easy to use DynamoDB in an efficient way. Every item inside the DynamoDB have a size limit of 400 kilobytes. Of course, in this demo, we have just few text. But in a real world case, maybe you have to store in the DynamoDB the key of the object that is stored on S3. This is a possible solution. If your posts are very long, you have a lot of text. So this is a technical limit that you have to keep in mind when you use DynamoDB. In addition, we want that our visitor, when comes to our blog post, see the post ordered or sorted by the newest one to the oldest one. To do this, we have to use a second global index. This is the name in the DynamoDB terminology. So this means that we have to create another table that allows us to do this kind of query. Because the API needs always a key and a sort key, and it's not possible to retrieve all the posts. So we need an additional property that allows us to do this kind of query. So let's start with the live coding session. Oh, did you see, or the font is too, okay. So let's start. The first step, in this project, I already built a React application. So inside this, you can see the source folder, there is a simple React application. In this application, as components, I use the AWS Amplify UI that are React components ready to use. And the idea is that you can integrate Amplify in your current front end. So to do this, we just type Amplify init. Yes, but it's okay. So the name we use is AWS Amplify test. So Amplify already scanned the folder and told me that there is a framework. The application is a React application, and already know the structure, which are the script to build or the front end, etc. Amplify supports even Flutter and Vue, so it works even with other frameworks. So we say yes, and we initialize the project. We use a pre-configured profile. It's called Amplify. And it starts to create something in the cloud. Just to show you what is happening. Now we are already deploying some resources on AWS. Amplify do this for us. And if you look which kind of resources are created, there are some roles that are used to then manage the access to our application, and even a bucket on S3 that is used to deploy our front end in the cloud. So let's continue. Now, no. So now we have the basic infrastructure of our application already in the cloud. Now we want to add the storage for to store our post. So it's easy because you have just Amplify storage add. So we choose a NoSQL database. We will provide AWS Amplify test. This is the name of our database. We create a table called post.
Qui c'è il resto corti perché sennò chi sta dall'altro lato non vede la parte bassa dello schermo.
Come?
C'è sulla finestra. Basso la finestra.
Poi, ok.
Il fondo della finestra.
Aspetta, che ce l'ho in... Okay. So now we can create the columns that are, or let's say, the shape of our post. So our post will have an ID that identify in a unique way the post. We'll have a date of creation. Date of creation, we'll use that date of creation to sort the post in from the newest one to the oldest one. We add a column called blog ID. This is the column that we use as a secondary global index that allows us to how to say, perform the query that retrieve all the posts. If we want, in a real case, normally blog application could be deployed multiple times in a website. So normally each blog instance of blog is identified with a blog ID. Could be, in this case, we use just a number, but could be even a string that identifies the blog instance. Then we have the title, and then we have the content of our post. So let's start. ID. Oops. ID is a string. Yes, we add another columns and is date of creation. And this is a number. We will store milliseconds. When we create the post, we store the millisecond in this column. We create another column called log ID, our secondary index. And this is a number. We add another column, it's called title, is a string, and we add another column called content, and is a string too. We have finished. So we have an ID column, a date of creation column, a blog ID column, a title, and a content columns. No, we don't want to add other. Now, Amplify asks us which is the partition key of our table and the sort key. In this case, our partition key is the ID. A partition key is the one that defines in a unique way an item inside the table. Yes, we want to define even a sort key. The sort key is the date of creation. Now, Amplify asks if we want to create a secondary index. In our case, we need to create a secondary index because we want to perform a query and sort our post. So, yes, we call the the global secondary index as blog ID index. I suggest you to use always a meaningful name when and think about the name you are using when you define this kind of stuff. So we create the global secondary index. We call it blog ID index. We use in this case, we are creating another table, and in this case, the partition key is the blog ID that will be equal to all the posts we put inside the table. And we define the sort key. The sort key is the same of the main table and is the date of creation. We don't need other secondary index. We don't want to trigger a lambda. It's possible using an event-driven approach, even to attach a to invoke a lambda every time we do some operation on the database. For example, we insert a new post, and a function could be called, and we do additional stuff when this event happens, and we don't need it. So now our storage is ready. As you can find, we can see that there is a new folder in our project called Amplify. In the subfolder there is a folder for each thing we add. It's possible even to customize what Amplify create for us. In this case, we have a backend, There is a storage, and here there are the infrastructure as a code that is used to create these resources on the cloud. Oops. Now, we have the database. We need an API to interact with our database. So it's simple, like Amplify add API. We create a REST API, and we need to provide a friendly name, and we call it AWS Amplify. Oops. Test API. Our endpoints, so the browser we call host. It is our data point, our endpoint. Automatically, Amplify generate a regexp that catch all the other stuff comes after post. So we can say we have like, if we call post, we retrieve all the post of the blog, but if we request post / an ID of a blog post, we retrieve a single post. Now we create a Lambda to manage the API. Lambda is a services of AWS that allows to create function as a service. So we just write the code of our function, and all the other stuff around this function is managed by AWS. What happens? When we create an API, we create an API gateway. This API gateway then invoke a Lambda, the Lambda we are creating. The Lambda receive an event, and starting from this event, Lambda do something and return the response to the client. So we choose Node.js as runtime, and we choose CRUD function for DynamoDB. So in this way, we have a Lambda that is scaffolded to query a DynamoDB database. So we can choose the table we create before. Yes, this. And we need to configure additional settings. Yes. So we want, of course, is asking if we want to access other resources from our Lambda, and yes, because we want to access DynamoDB. We want to access the database. So yes, we want to do this. He knows that we already define a storage. We choose it. So now we are giving the Lambda the possibility, the permission to do almost everything. We can choose what the Lambda could do. In our case, the Lambda will be able to create an item, to read an item, to update and to delete an item. Here, we don't need to invoke or to have a schedule for this lambda, so the answer is no. We don't need layers. And configure environment, no, we don't need it. No need secrets. And now, yes, we click, we answer yes. And one moment, because this is the lambda that are automatically created by Amplify. We need some work to some little modification, because our case is
If you can increase the font, really hard here to read.
so is enough.
Is enough for you?
A little bit more. So this is the code that is generated. Is there are all the parameters we need to access our DynamoDB instance. There is a DynamoDB client instantiated for us. Here are all the information we define during the definition of our storage. So the partition key name is the ID, the key type S is for string, and so on. It's quite easy. And then there are some other variables that are created to manage how the path we invoke to request our post. So let's continue. Now we can restrict the API access. As I said at the beginning, our visitor will have only the permission to read the post, but the administrator will be able to create, edit, and delete the post. Now, Amplify allows us to do these things just answering a few questions. We want to restrict the API access, yes. We define the access both for authenticated and guest users. So for authenticated user, our administrator can create, read, update, and delete post, while guest user, our visitor, can only read. We don't need another path. No. So now in our machine, we have the setup for the storage and for our API. This is the situation in the cloud at the moment. Now we want to deploy what we just configured. And it's easy because we just write amplify push. Now we take some, probably some minutes. So as you can see, this is the recap. We are deploying a storage. We are deploying a Lambda. We are deploying an authentication layer, and we are deploying an API. Do you have some question? Because we have to wait a few minutes. And here. Something is happening behind the scene. So to manage our user, Amplify use Cognito. Cognito is allows us to manage user, even the registration of the user, and permissioning groups. You can do almost everything you need in a classical application. Not almost, everything.
Yeah, sorry. You said that you have created one or more API, for example, /post, etc. But you have only one Lambda function, so you manage the whole application with just one Lambda function and not many multiple Lambda functions for each action.
Exactly, because the developers of Amplify choose to use a framework called Express. So, and inside the Lambda, as you can see, we manage the get method to list all the objects. Just the get to just retrieve a single object, the put to update an object, the post to create an object, and a delete to remove an entry in our database. So all the HTTP verbs are managed by a single Lambda. This is the choice of Amplify. Of course, it's even possible to split in different Lambdas if you want.
But is this configurable by Amplify or?
No, I don't think.
Do some work.
Yes, it's working. So, in the meanwhile, we can analyze the web application. In the web application, within the source folder, Amplify created this file called AWS exports. It contains all the information. Now are still few, but at the end of the process, here we have a lot of information that I used from the Amplify client to do the HTTP request from the browser to the server. And I can show you. This is the how the front end works. We have an API. We import the AWS export. We need the name of the API is the endpoint of our API. And so we can use it through the API client that is provided by AWS Amplify. This client is based on Axios and manage for us even all the stuff about authentication. You don't have to think about which is the name of the header in order to, which is the value I have to put inside the HTTP request header to be authenticate through the API. Everything is transparent. Just use the client and the export, and all the stuff works without any additional work from our side. The post API, it's really, really simple. The path is post we defined before. We can create, we can delete, we can get or post, get a post by ID, and just as you can see, it's really, really easy. We just the API name is comes from the export, and the path is the one we define, post, and yeah, it's nothing special. It's really, really easy. So the deployment ends. This is the endpoint of our API, but we don't do nothing in our front-end code. We have just to import the AWS configuration and yeah, pass the name of the API to the client. And the content of AWS export now at the end of the process is this. There are a lot of information, and the one we need for the API is this endpoint. If we come and see the console, there are a lot of resources created, and we have, for example, a user pool. This is the pool, the pool of Cognito that manage our user. In our case, there will be only one user, the administrator. And then we will see how to interact with Cognito easily. We have the table of our DynamoDB database. Of course, there is the secondary index we defined, and everything is here. And we deploy even an API. This is our API, and as I said before, Amplify create for us this regular expression that is a catch-all that allows you to manage even the post/IDs and whatever. So now, if we run now I'm starting the React application, and I expect it doesn't work because we need to modify a bit the code that is that has been auto-generated by Amplify. Is not good for our case because we have to do a query and sort the data, so we have to adjust the code, and we will see this. Just to have an idea, the call give a 404 because oh no, probably it's not a 404, but just a moment, because I think that I did an error. No, it's correct. Yes, it's giving a 404, but it's not correct. Now we edit the code in order to have a 200 status, and let's say that here the application should say there are no posts. So let's edit. I just so to be quicker, I save what we need. So first thing, we define a global index, and probably it's not the best. Is good. Yeah. So we define a global index, and I set up this. I add this information here. So now we are we work on the get, so to retrieve all the posts. So we have to do a query using the global secondary index in order to be able to sort data in from the newest one to the oldest one. And the get not this is this. So the get created by Amplify doesn't work in our case. And we replace it with this. So let's analyze the code. We define our query parameters are the table name, which is the index name we use to do the query. In this case, we use the global secondary index. This is the template for the key condition. In this case, we use the as a key name as a the partition key is the one defined in the secondary index, and we will replace it with the blog ID. And the sort key is a date of creation, and will be replaced with date start that we define here. These are the replacement. So blog ID is the blog ID. In this case, for us is 1. So it's the first instance of our blog post, and date start is 0. This means that, the date of creation is 0. And we use the scan index forward to revert the order. So basically, DynamoDB sort in an ascending way, and with this flag we revert the order of the item. We just query, and we have what we need. Of course, now we need to do another deployment because we have just modified our Lambda, and we need to redeploy on the cloud. And this should be faster. In the meanwhile, we can...
Only the function will be deployed? Only the function.
Amplify keeps in the local machine like a GitHub repo, and manage only the deploy only the changes that are required. And of course, we deployed our Lambda. So it's already deployed. Yes. And what we have to expect if I don't do any error is, okay, as you can see now we have 200. The get is working, there are no error, of course there are no posts because our database is empty. So now we with Amplify we configure the access for visitors, and so the guest, and the access for authenticated user. The React application is configured to the root in the application provide even an admin panel. This form is generated by Amplify UI. I don't wrote any line of code to manage these components and all the action that are made from these components. I don't know nothing. So we still don't have a user. In this case, of course, is just for the demo part because the create account should be disabled. Otherwise, everybody that knows this this URL is able to create an administrative account. This is just for demo. So I create my test $1, 2, 3, 4 $. So now I open my Gmail box, probably. There is the verification code. Ole, we are logged in as administrator. I don't write nothing. This is, everything is managed by Amplify for us. What happens behind the scene? When I click on create and insert all the data, a user has been created in our Cognito pool and is active, so it's able to access the administration panel. Let's go back to our application. Now we have to modify the code that manage the post. So in the Lambda function, we have to write some code to create the post according to the structure we decide to use in the storage. For example, for each post, we have to add the blog ID because it's necessary to perform the query, and even the timestamp of the date of creation. So let's go back and let's go to the post. So first of all, we have to import the crypto library as native of Node.js. We use it to generate a unique ID. Let's go back to the post. So, so we replaced the post created by Amplify for us with our post. In addition, because we need that each item we are putting in the table have a blog ID blog ID column, a date of creation, and ID. An ID that is the unique ID used to retrieve the object. So, how to say? This is the piece of code I have to write to make thing work. As we did before, we have to save and push our modification to the cloud. So now I expect that our Lambda will be updated with the new code.
Maybe I skipped and you already said something. You're running the front end on local on the
Yes.
computer, but it's possible to deploy on S3?
Absolutely, yes. It's possible to host the application directly on AWS using S3 and put, of course, in front of the API and the storage, the file stored on S3, a CDN. So the CDN of AWS called CloudFront. So you can manage all the caches and the optimization stuff required for modern application. And in this case, you reduce the latency between the client and the server. And this is managed by CloudFront for you. So Amplify is not just a tool, a service to develop the application, but even to deploy the application and manage all the things required to run the application in production. So now our administrator is able to create a post. Let's create the post. Post 1 title. Post 1 content. Now, the post has been created, and if our visitor lands on our blog, see the post. Oh, of course, we have to implement the get of a single post. So now we add the code to retrieve a single post and to delete a single post. The put works fine with, we don't need to modify. It works the code generated for us from Amplify. So to retrieve the just a minute. So this doesn't work, at least for us, and we need to get the post. What is changed is just the path, because Amplify decided for REST API to include /object and then the ID of the post. I don't like this solution because normally in REST API you have, for example, post / and ID directly. So this is the reason I overwrite and change the code. So this is to retrieve a single post. The put, as I said before, works out of the box. And then and I think even delete works out of the box. No, even delete has been to be. So we did only one deploy instead of waiting for each modification. So we push on the cloud.
The cloud formation that is updated right now is also saved locally or only generated?
No, it's saved locally, and we find all the cloud formation here. This is the cloud formation, of course, not in YAML, but in JSON format. And for each, let's say, Amplify resources, because for the storage generate some templates, for the API generate another template. But basically the cloud formation template are stored locally.
If you modify them directly, are totally overwrite when you do a Amplify push, or there are some kind of black magic that merge.
You can modify what is generated, but to manage some customization, you have to create inside these folders a JavaScript file that overwrite what you need, and then it generates the cloud formation.
You can extend the base.
Exactly. So, finished, and our visitor should be able to see, probably, our post. Now we can create another post just to see all the API working. And our visitor should see the post too.
You're in the post.
Oh, right. So post 2 is the newest one, so it's the first one. This is the sort. To reach this, to have this order, we have the global index needed. Now we can, let's say, edit post 2. So we test the put, and our user should see the edit. And then we decided to delete the first post. And our user see only the second post. This is the end of the coding session. As you can see, I don't write a lot of line of code. Yes, I copy and paste, but if you compare what has been generated by Amplify and what I have to edit are just few lines of code. The tricky part is when you decide to use DynamoDB to store your data, because you have to think about what you want to do. I ask even to my colleagues some suggestion how to structure the DynamoDB in the right way, and this for this scenario was almost the best. But if you think even in a production environment this works, fine, because if you think, as I said at the beginning, it's possible that a blog application could be deployed at multiple times in different, for example, sections of the same website. So the blog ID is not so artificial, could be useful in a real-world case. And you have to keep in mind that the posts of your blogs are long. Probably store the content within DynamoDB that have a limit of 400 kilobytes could be a problem. So you have to study another solution. And so that's it. So if you have some question, feel free to ask.
Allora, can I just one question? I seen a tutorial on Amplify using the Amplify Studio UI.
Yes.
Mostly, and he created the data model directly in that UI, that studio. What that means under that wizard, that creation, there is a DynamoDB creation. What you created by Amplify
Yeah.
CLI.
One moment. So So I use the CLI, but you can use even the UI. And what happens is exactly the same. Yeah, for you define your data model, and behind the scene there is a DynamoDB that is deployed on the cloud.
It's a very cool.
Yeah, this is, for example, really useful if you have to create a proof of concept, and you have even to works with directly with the designer, because normally designer use Figma, and in this tool it's possible even to take Figma files and convert directly in React components. In addition, yesterday announced even the possibility to use a piece of JSON and generate form. So it's really, really powerful. And probably, I don't remember. Yeah, you can use React, Vue, Angular, Flutter. There are a lot of front-end and even native frameworks that could be used directly from the UI or through the command line interface. And Amplify have a lot of services behind. So, for example, you can add analytics to your website just in 3 lines of code normally. You can add prediction. So this means that some machine learning models are queried and give you the answer you need. So, and if you look at the documentation, normally are really 3 lines of code to integrate this kind of technologies in your website. Okay, this is the import from Figma. And this is the yesterday announcement, build React form.
So it works only with React, right? Not with the other.
At the moment, these 2 things works only with React. But if you have a Vue application, for example, or Angular application, you can use the CLI as in the demo to integrate Amplify with your front end. Basically, I think that AWS is working on React because all the console of AWS is written in React. So I think they use this even internally. Other question?
Why the auto-generated code was not working? Sure it's a bug or...
No, it's because they do some choice, like, for example, the get post, a single post, they put in the path,
The object.
the object, and use the hash key in a strange way. So I have to, no, sorry, in here. Delete. So, for example, here there is the problem, and as you can see, there is even a sort key path. So this means that the client, to require a single post, have to pass the ID of the post and even the date of creation. I think it's too much. So this is the reason because I choose to modify.
This was your decision to change the mode.
Otherwise
it
works.
Work out of the box.
Yes.
Okay.
And in any case, doesn't work for the get, because we have to create a more complex query, because we have the secondary index, and in this case,
Will not work because
no, doesn't work because we have a special case and doesn't work. If we have probably not a blog, and another case should work out of the box. Other question?
What about the cost? Is just generating something that can
Basically, if you stay in the threshold of the free tier, it's free. Of course, if your website have a lot of traffic, you have some cost, but don't think that is too much because.
But the costs are only related to the resources that you are using, not about
Exactly.
the tools, amplifiers,
Exactly.
devices free of charge.
just to give an idea for a static website or static.
Well, we can.
I spend one and
I don't have.
per month.
50,000 users for Cognito.
But if you have an application, you say the static website.
One-
That's for basic.
Static website is only about S3 storage and we are
It's
talking
just
about.
Yeah.
starting and network zone configuration.
Yes, but
Probably I was.
if you deploy on S3, because Elia said that you can deploy the.
Free totally?
No, it's not totally, but you are talking about $0.03 for each gigabyte.
Okay, this is an idea. You have two options. The free tier is free for 1 year, and then is a pay as you go. As you can say, the build and deploy is 1 cent per minute. The data storage is
But only if you use Amplify pipelines.
Because the build is otherwise
it's just S3 and the data transfer and the request, but nothing more.
And then if you want to expose the CDN.
This is just to give an idea of. It's not so much. Absolutely. Probably for a personal website, but even for a small company is
Sustainable cost.
absolutely.
And,
Of course, I didn't speak about the possibility to integrate Amplify support even CI/CD thing, so you can configure all the stuff to have your continuous integration and continuous deployment automatically when you.
show
Yeah.
like what application.
Yeah, but if you even have some test that you want to, for example, for the API, if you want to automatize the testing before the deployment. It's easy, and you can use as a repository GitHub, GitLab, and every time you push something on the repository, you can start the pipeline for the deployment.
Also code commit.
Also code commit. Yeah. The documentation is really good. I have some sometimes they forgot that for a user that is starting, some steps that are let's say trivial for them are not trivial for somebody that is just starting to study the application. But basically, let's say that in 2 days you are able to deploy something. To be honest, the hard part was to create the front end. This is the one.
With UI, you can get some benefits.
Yeah, exactly.
I see a really good result in few minutes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Other?
If you use Flutter, you can really use Flutter. I mean, the website, Android, and iOS application, or
I didn't investigate about this, but I am almost sure that yes. I think that everything we did today is possible to do the same thing with iOS, Android, and Flutter. In the documentation, I don't see particular, let's say, different cases in the workflow. No other question?
How many hours did you spend to start the first application?
2 days, more or less. The time at the end was to document everything, every step.
To remember what you did.
Exactly. And probably in the next days, next weeks, let's say, I will share with the community even the code, so you can just have a template of something that works.
Would you say you use Java, or not use PHP or HTML, or just strictly Java?
It's just a React application is just HTML and JavaScript. Client side. From the server side, I use Node.js because our server is a Lambda, is a function. So it's, of course, Lambda support different runtime. If you like PHP, you can use PHP. Basically, PHP, Java, Node.js, Python. The runtime is your choice. Rust. So, if there are no other questions.
Thank you.
thank you.
Okay.